What is going on, Paddle and Fin Nation? We are back here with another edition of the Fishing for Noobs show. Really excited about this one. I've got my kayak coffee cold brew in hand. Go to kayakcoffee.com. Use the promo code kayakfishbrew20, all in caps. It'll get you 20% off. Tonight, we have a really great guest that I'm really excited. He's been in the industry. He's a stick. He's a bait manufacturer. Just an all-around great guy. Really excited to have him on the show. We're going to talk balsa baits and whatever else comes up. So without further ado, welcome, Phil. Hey, Phil, how's it going?
I'm good, Matt. How are you?
Doing awesome. So, Phil, from PH Custom Lures, you kind of specialize, I would call it specialize, in balsa baits and balsa manufacturing. So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you from? How'd you get started with fishing? All of that stuff.
Well, I'm from Connorsville, Indiana. I lived here most of my life, except for back before I had kids. I did guide a lot of hunters in Colorado and stuff, and I lived out there for a while, but I ended up back here in Indiana, and I grew up in a fishing family. I mean, Dad never fished tourneys, but we always fished. Couldn't wait for the weekend, things like that. And I guess and this is going to go before a lot of your viewers, like living rubber and stuff. Like I remember jigs and things before there was living rubber or silicone. They were all bucktail or they were Dynel deer hair. And I remember like my Uncle Marshall, which he's passed away now, but him and my dad, when we were little, they wanted to tie their own black hair jigs because back then everybody used pork rinds. So they used a jig and eel or a jig and frog, Yeah. And it amazes me always how many new guys don't even realize that about jig fishing. Like this rebirth of the hair jig and stuff, it's funny how it goes in cycles because my uncle had a black collie and they would kept that dog half bald in the winter because they would mold their own jig heads and they would cut that black hair off that dog and tie jigs.
Yeah.
And when the water was, especially when it was cold, like everybody used, like they used a black widow eel or a twintail or a frog on the back of a jig. And it was really big, like all over Indiana, Kentucky, Tennessee, and I'm sure lots of places I've never been. And so as I started building jigs and selling them all through high school, that's how I made a lot of my money is, I worked at grocery stores and stuff and I made jigs. And then, of course I fished tourneys and I've done decent. I've had really good years and I've had really bad years. And I fished like Everstarts and FLW series and stuff. And then Bill Owen is one of my best friends. And we always put it around. I just kind of got into it from hanging around with Rick Schreiber that builds the laser lures in Cincinnati. And all the balsa fans are going to know who he is. And Wes England, who's passed, who did the wee baits, and Gary Dees. And Gary doesn't make baits anymore. He's older. He's just enjoying retirement. And so I painted baits for the pros and different people forever. And Billy would come hang out in the shop because we're neighbors. And one day he's like, let's make a balsa bait. And I was always like a huge balsa bait fan. I want a BFL and a laser lure. And so we kind of like,
you're kind of down in that you're kind of down in that region where balsa is really popular.
Yeah, so Rick helped me. Rick and I have fished team tourneys together and always been good friends. He actually called me today wanting football jigs. And so he was really good about helping me, showing me how to paint and the way that he builds his baits. And then as time went on, more and more, I was a paramedic and I never thought about ever selling a balsa bait. It was just an accident. And we just wanted something everybody didn't have. And I've just always been such a firm believer in balsa, and not that I don't throw plastic baits because I've got a 5XD and a 6XD tied on my deck right now. But I was always like really fascinated with balsa and, playing around with baits and trying to make something new. And so kind of like the blind leading the blind, me and Billy kind of worked together. And then as time went on, I became really good friends with Lee Sisson. Lee worked for Bagley's for years, and he built the Renegade line for Walmart, and he built baits for Bass Pro. And Lee's built literally millions of balsa baits. I mean, he made a really good living for himself. He's got an awesome retirement. He probably forgot more about balsa than any of us will ever know. So Lee would come deer hunt with me, and he would come to my house and stay a week or two, and we would bow hunt and we would piddle around in the shop during the day. And I bought Lee out, bought his equipment when he wanted to retire for like the third time. So I ended up with these duplicators and stuff that his brother had built, and it just kind of took off. Riders started calling me, and guys I never heard of, never knew, and I started selling to pros, from Takahiro Mori to Scroggins to right on down the line. I mean, I even KVD's got baits from me, and I just got really blessed. And one day I'm thinking, this is so good that I don't want to be a paramedic no more. So I just walked out one day and I never looked back. And it's always been pretty lucrative. You can't get rich doing it. And until live scopes come out recently, it's really crippling the fishing market. I mean, everybody that's in the fishing industry knows that. I mean, everybody buys jig heads and minnows now. So sales aren't what they used to be. But one thing I've noticed, it seems like since more and more guys are moving offshore, and like the Midwestern guys are kind of 2 or 3 years behind the guys in the Carolinas, maybe in Alabama, Georgia, they jumped on the live scoping thing really quick. But it kind of seems like maybe there's more shallow fish to catch now than there was. And maybe we'll see a resurgence back in guys that like to do that, because live scoping is not fun to me. I just don't enjoy it all. I like not knowing actually if I'm going to get bit or.
Yeah, no, I agree. Out of curiosity, what was that first bait that you and Lowen made?
Well, the very first one that we made was my hunting pea, and we cut them out. We cut them out on bandsaws and shaped them with fingernail files.
Wow.
And we didn't even understand. I didn't have like fixtures to do different things, so they're more consistent. And they were really pretty crude, but they worked great. And then a guy here in Indiana, I mean, they were truly handmade from start to finish, just like the wee baits and the laser lures. And then like Kelly Hook here, who's the president of the Federation, he got some from me, and no two were exactly alike. I mean, we would try, but we use contour gauges, but they're still not exactly alike. And then Kelly wins 2 or 3 like regional level tourneys on the hunting pea real quick. And then Gary Atkins, who fishes the MPFL, he used to be my traveling partner, him and Matt Sizemore, when I fished the Everstarts. And Gary started winning money on them and doing good, and it just took off. And then here I am. Now we got, well, I don't know. You get them from, we probably got what, 30 models? Oh
gosh, it's
maybe more.
It's got to be more with the old school line in there too. It's got
yeah. And what I try to do, I'm working on a new one right now. I've been playing around with is I try to look at it like every single one of them is a tool. And no matter what you make, I don't think in the fishing industry, like I've never copied anybody's stuff that was still alive and making baits. My little guy's a version of the old baby pig, but they haven't been, I mean, the original owner, builder, he's been gone forever. And like, I've got a bait here, and the guys in the South will know what that is. That's my version of the old gulp down there. And you could buy a dozen gulps, and no two were the same, but they caught fish, So they've been gone forever. And there's been a couple other guys tried to copy them, I think mostly out of resin. So I had so many calls. I did that bait, but most of my stuff is stuff that I just sit down and draw, and I start whittling and carving and play. And I always have an idea in my head, like, for instance, I know you throw this bait. This is one of the most overlooked baits that I build. Can you see it good? Or the lip goes straight down. It's a flat bait. It's called a sub P, and it's not one of my best sellers, but I actually threw one this weekend, all weekend. I don't think there's a better crankbait to throw over grass. If I can hold my rod up, it's real buoyant, and you can wind it 6 inches under, or if you hold your rod tip down, it'll go up to 3 feet with light line, probably averages 2. And even with the lip down, I'm not sure how it works. I mean, this was an accident, but it sheds the grass good. You can wind it right into the milfoil, the coontail, or whatever, and pop it, and it comes free. And it comes over logs and cover and stuff really good. And when I did that, when Lowen and I actually wanted something to throw on the Ohio River, there's so many places, it's shallow flats. You'll be in the ditch or the creek, and you can't get up on the flat. We wanted to be able to throw up there and wind a crankbait the same place that you would throw a spinnerbait. And that's how it come about. It's our sub P, and it's a phenomenal bait. Yeah, some parts of the country it sells good, but I think a lot of guys don't know what it is. And this is actually probably in the top 4 favorite baits out of all of them that I build. I throw this bait a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And something that's really unique about balsa, and we can get into it here in a few, is it's how buoyant it is.
Oh yeah.
That's one of the great things about balsa. So, as a manufacturer and kind of as a balsa guy, why balsa and why not plastic?
Well, I know that if whatever you say, you're going to get hate mail, no matter what. But I do throw a lot of plastic baits. I carry one flat plain old box that has nothing but 1.5s, 2.5s. It has, 2.0s. I have Lucky Crafts in there and stuff. But I primarily use them like around riprap and to be honest, I don't throw them a whole lot, but I carry them. I don't want to draw a co-angler who just kicks my rear end on a 1.5, but balsa just comes through cover so much better. I don't care who builds it. Cliff Pace is a good friend of mine. He builds a balsa. Everybody's balsa comes through wood for the most part better than any plastic bait.
Yeah.
I mean, anybody that says different, then I know right away they haven't thrown it, because like this was my original bait right here, the hunting pea. It's like a bulldozer. It's real buoyant. I throw it right in the laydowns, exactly where I would throw a spinner bait. I speed it up and bump the limbs. And another good thing about balsa is, like, this bait's really buoyant. It casts good, It's but when you get it hung up, if you can flip your rod, they're so buoyant. A lot of times they come free. And then another thing, if you think about this, and I have this conversation with people quite a lot, and we've talked about it on lots of podcasts, and I think most of the guys that fish a lot know this, but like, let me get a plastic bait. Like, our fish get so much pressure now, especially since COVID. It's just horrendous. And I know a lot of our lakes are on the decline, and I know someone's going to say, well, mine's not. Well, a lot of them are. Yeah. They're on a major decline. They've been hammered so much. But you listen to this on this plastic bait. Can you hear that?
Yep.
Pretty good. Okay, now you listen to this. It's not nearly as loud. It's not as sharp. So, like, I've always had an in-ground pool, and I've played a lot. And you're going to think we're retarded for doing this, but I would get in the pool and have somebody put my head under the water and have them reel a bait by me. And I know what a spinnerbait sounds like, and I know what a buzzer sounds like, and a plopper. And like, I notice, like, whenever you wind any crankbait by your head, they're noisier than people think, even if they're silent, because you got the hooks and the split rings rattling. And when I talk about the plastic baits, I'm not knocking the plastic baits at all, because, like I said, I've got a 5XD and a 6XD on the deck right now. They're two of the best deep cranking baits ever made, I think. Yeah. But if you get in the water and you have somebody wind a plastic bait by you, even if it's a silent model, guys will be shocked at how noisy it is when it goes by. And you wind a balsa bait by you in the same way, and it doesn't make even a third as much noise. It still makes noise. You can still hear it, but because balsa, I guess it kind of dampens this. Yeah. It's like it's like a sponge. It's so porous. Uh-huh. It dampens that. It's not that sharp clicking and banging when it goes by. It's just so more subtle. And then I think another thing too is you hear a lot about the hunting action, the hunting right and left. And you can't get that out of a plastic bait like you get with a wood bait. I don't care how many commercials you see or what they say about 1.5s hunting. You get one once in a while, but it does not hunt like, if you know how to build a balsa bait, it's easy to make a balsa bait hunt. It's not hard. Some hunt more than others. Yep. But I've always felt like that when that little change in direction really triggers those fish. But if you want to hear a quick, neat story, I don't know how much time we got. I was sitting eating with Rick Clunn. Me and Lowen were, I don't know where we were. We were somewhere to show, and we were eating with Rick Clunn. And he's like, he has the opposite view. Like, so many people call me and they're like, hey, I want mine to hunt right and left. You know what I mean? And yeah. Rick's like, I don't want mine to hunt right and left. He's like, I want mine to go straight. He's like, he numbers them A, B, and C, so he knows how much they hunt. So everybody has an opinion on that thing, but I've just always, and you can't argue with Rick Clunn. I mean, he's won millions on a crankbait, but I've just always myself, I felt like when they're hunting back and forth and going over and hitting stuff, that they just trigger more bites. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
No, I totally agree. And yeah, what really surprised me when I first started throwing a lot of balsa is how how I could throw it in treetops, how I could throw it through cover, and
Mhm.
I don't know how you fish it, but what I see a lot of guys do is they'll throw it out there and they'll wind it and they'll keep winding.
Mhm.
Coming through those limbs, what I like to do is I just use the rod tip and I just pull it through
Right.
the limbs. And
Right.
that balsa bait, it'll get kind of hung up on something. The nose of it will get kind of caught up, and then you
Mhm.
lightly pull it, and all of a sudden it darts, just like a bait fish trying to get away, or a
Yeah.
bluegill trying to get away, anything like that.
Triggers
So
that bite, doesn't it?
it
And
does.
you can fish it tighter to the cover than a plastic bait.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, I was fishing at the Ohio River, Cincinnati, maybe 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, and I was throwing my sub P, the little flat one that we had with the lip straight down.
Yeah.
And I caught 3 good fish, like 2.5 pound plus fish. All 3 of them came when I ran that bait into a stump. If it didn't hit the stump and bounce off, they did not eat. I never once,
Yeah.
like reeling close to the stump wasn't good enough. You actually had to deflect it off. And immediately when it hit it, they would be on it.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that just triggers the predator response in them, but you just can't do that as well with a balsa bait. And I know, or with a plastic bait. And I know one plastic bait that does really good, better than most. And I don't know if they still make it. Do they still make that, Norman? Do they still make that Fat Boy?
I think so.
And it's a plastic bait patterned after the original, really close to the original B1 Bagleys.
Yeah.
And of all the ones I've thrown, it seems like it comes through wood and deflects better than any of the others. I didn't know if you could still get it or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I know Norman's. I mean, they've changed hand many times now and sold back and forth. And I know
Right.
some of their older stuff is coming back. So I don't know. I don't know if that's available or not.
Yeah, that Fat Boy crankbait's actually a really good one for, if I was going to throw a plastic square bill in the wood, that's the one I would throw.
Yeah, I totally agree with some of those plastic ones. They the components on them aren't the best. When you're buying
Right.
them from a big box store, you get this huge batch of hooks. So it could be Mustad hooks one time, it could be VMC the next time. Where
Well, they're all made in China.
Yeah.
All of them are made in China.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of the fact that mine's all made in America. And here's the difference. What do you pay for an average plastic square bill, you think? $10 maybe?
10, 12
Is that
bucks.
close? Or are they more or less? Or
yeah, right around there.
Yeah. So these balsa baits are usually mostly 20 to 25. Some of them are up 40, $50. Not mine, but there are some out there that are $50 and they're really nice baits. The difference is what goes into building them.
Mm-hmm.
All of ours start out as a long stick of balsa, and it's a 2-week process start to finish. And you've got multiple coats of clear underneath the paint before it ever gets painted to seal the wood good. And you got to seal the wood before you can even clear it. And what you're paying for with the balsa baits is the labor and then the price of material. In the last 3 years, the price of the material, like balsa, like we use all lacquer products. I don't do any water-based stuff. I know a lot of guys do, and they paint with water-based. We use all lacquer-based products, and they've like doubled and tripled in price in the last 3 years. This is incredible. So now, like I've raised the price of pH baits $1, like in 12, 15 years is all I've ever had a price increase. And now it probably costs $3 more to build a bait or close to it, with higher labor costs and higher hooks and packaging. And so you make less money on it, but I love doing it so much. And I try to keep the price where I know $23, $24 is a lot for a bait, but I really feel like you get what you pay for. You just can't go, this, you fish a lot. You just can't go throw them into the dock real hard or throw them up on the rocks all the time, or you can't be fishing up the Mississippi and sling them into the side of a dock because it might be the end of them. But I mean, through normal fishing, do you ever break one?
No. So it's funny you mention that. I have this Lowen dollar bill right here.
Uh-huh.
That thing's about 5-6 years old.
Right.
And it has a little spot right here on the back that I hit up against something, and I've sealed it about 5 times, 6 times. And this bait still runs. This is probably one of my favorites. One thing I love is the Lowen dollar bill, but in the springtime, this bait is just dynamite. And I mean, I've beat the crap out of this one, and it still runs exactly the way it did the first day. And something else you get too, Phil, with your baits is you tune them.
Yeah, we tune them.
So
So
you're
they
not going to
should
get
run
one
pretty
that weighs
close, you know?
sideways. Yep.
Yeah, they should run pretty close.
Yep.
And I tell you something else too, and you and I've talked about this before. I don't know what it is, and this is the same way with plastic baits too. And I really don't understand the plastic bait thing because they all come out of an injection mold and they put a steel ball in there that weighs the same. I don't understand the difference, but you could buy like a skinny pea is by far my best seller all winter. Skinny peas, dollar bills. I sell a lot of the W1, 2, and 3 in the old school line flat baits. But when you just get one once in a while that just catches them better, doesn't it? And when I get those ones, I save them, I treasure them because you could tie another one on and it can look to us like it wiggles the same and but there'll be something special about some. And I really wish we knew what caused that because I have no idea what makes one better than another.
I know. Yeah, I have probably 4 baits that I have little X's on, and
Yeah,
those
for
run really
turnies.
really good, and
Yeah,
they just
yeah.
have. I don't know if they have an extra wiggle. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but
Something
maybe.
about them, isn't it? Even with plastic baits, you get them like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I had a W2, which is our old school line, which is a little cheaper built line of baits, in that they've got like a little cheaper components on them, and they're not hand tuned. I mean, sometimes if we got time, we make sure they're pretty close, but they're a phenomenal bait, and I'm gonna have to raise the price a buck because they average what, $12, $13 retail for a handmade balsa bait, and I don't think anyone does that in
Yeah.
the country at all. And I'm not making any money on them, so I gotta go up just a hair. But I had this W2 in that Louisiana shad color this spring. I started like in late February, early March, and I caught so many fish on this one W2. I don't know what it was about it, but I had it tied on for a month, and I was fishing at Brookville 3-4 nights a week, no matter how cold, as long as you could stand to be out there. And the first fish I caught on it was a 6'8", which is a really big fish for Indiana.
Yes.
And that same bait went on and on and on until I finally threw it into the rocks and I broke the bill out of it. And it just made me sick.
Yeah.
And I tied it. I obviously I can get as many as I want, but I kept throwing it till the water got up to about 55, and I continued to catch fish. But there was something really special about the one I broke, and I don't know what it was. The bill angle's the same. They weigh the same. I don't know what it was about it, but that bait was, or maybe it's in our head. Do you think?
Probably is.
Maybe it's just a confidence thing.
It probably is. Probably is. You start thinking about those big fish you caught on it weeks ago, and you reach into the rod locker, and that's the one you grab. So
yeah, the fishing is so much mental, isn't it? Maybe more mental than anything.
Yes. So with that, let's kind of go through some seasonal patterns with balsa and kind of what baits you look at, why you look at them, rod, reel selections, things like that. So let's start in the winter. So in the wintertime, balsa, a balsa flat bait, and a flat bait is simply that. It's got flat sides. It's
right.
Real narrow. So in the wintertime, are you grabbing a flat side, and kind of what are your 2 or 3?
Yeah, I do when it's cold, and I guess I started doing it because that's what I read in the magazines years and years ago, and that's a myth in a way because like I live close to the Ohio River, and all you hear from guys is flat bait, flat bait, flat bait when the water's cold, and like I can't build enough skinny peas and gulps and dollar bills and stuff in the winter, and then come summer they don't sell very good. But in the Ohio River Valley, there is so many tourneys won on a flat balsa bait in the summer. Yeah. It goes against the opposite of what you always read. And I've did so many podcasts and magazine articles and stuff where we talk about, first thing you say is, oh yeah, you throw a skinny pea or an old little PD or something when the water's cold. But they do catch them good when the water's cold. But explain to me this, and the bulk of my sales all winter is flat baits. Don't get me wrong. But those flat baits are really narrow, and they slide through the water like a shad wrap. But then explain to me the guys, like especially in the Ozarks, who just wreck them all winter on a rock crawler or a wiggle wart, and it's as wide as you can get.
Yeah. Yep.
There's Absolutely. A lot of mystery. There's so many mysteries in fishing. That's what makes it so fascinating.
It is. Yeah. I mean, honestly, like dollar bill for me, when that water temperature is in that area where I can throw it, like
Right.
I'll throw this color, the hot mud bug. I'll throw this color in the early spring, and then honestly, in the summertime, I go to a bluegill pattern, and I still catch them on a dollar bill.
Yeah. Yeah. But guys have been conditioned to think that you only throw flat baits in the spring, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. So what's your ideal flat bait kind of setup? What rod, what reel, ratio, all that stuff?
I use a PAL. It's the Max series, and Keith's going to kick my butt, the owner, because I've been throwing them forever. I think it's a 7-footer, but what I like is I like a parabolic bend and never stiffer than a medium. I think that them flat bait rods, because you can't throw them and roll cast them as much as you can, like a square bill and things, because they're light, and some of them are really light. They flow like a potato chip, and that's one thing about my Skinny Pea. When I first started building it, I was putting weight in it, and it was hard to throw, and it caught them good. But then I added a gram, and it helped them throw tremendously, and then also slowed them down a little. When you stop them in the winter, you know, then they don't just pop to the top like a cork, and by doing that, you lose some of the. They don't come through cover as good, but they're hard to throw. So I've always thrown mine with a 7 or a 7.2 medium action rod. I want it to be a parabolic bend, and I really like the composite rods. And then I'm so old school because I think unless it's just changed that Luz has quit making them, I still throw mine on a 5-to-1 reel.
Yeah.
It just forces me to slow down, and I normally throw them on 10-pound fluorocarbon. Sometimes I throw 8 or 12, depending on if I want to get them deeper or if there's a lot of snags. But
Yep.
I think I'm almost guessing that you probably use about the same setup for flat baits.
Yep.
And I've had guys, even like some Elite Series pros and MLF guys, tell me when they buy them from me, they say, "Daggone, I can't cast them," but they're trying to use the traditional rod and roll cast them going down the bank, and it's almost like a exaggerated, like a lob cast kind of. And once you get it, you can throw them real far.
Yeah, yeah.
But,
I mean, and something else with that, you know, people may say, you know, there's that glass composite rod debate and all that. I used to almost always throw a glass rod. Now I'm getting more into the composites as they're getting better and better. But something
right.
about that rod and that action of that rod is that with that flat bait, it's not like they murder that thing.
No.
It kind of feels like a wet rag, and you just kind of reel
Right.
into it.
Kind of lean into it and keep reeling, don't you? Just speed up the pace a little. And one thing bad about flat baits is most of them have like number 6 hooks. And I fished with a lot of guys, and I've noticed a lot of guys will lose them right at the boat with flat baits because their rod's too stiff and their drag's too tight. And I think what happens, those rods that I use, I've even used medium lights with them before. Okay. And my rods bend almost to the back. I mean, they bend over halfway down when you got a fish. And when you get a 4 or 5 pound fish at the boat and they got them little tiny hooks, if they're skin hooked, if that drag don't slip when they surge under the boat and that rod really give and go with them, then a lot of those fish pull off. Same way with the suspended jerk bait. I'm always stuck in that dilemma. Like, I can't really find a rod that I like for suspended jerk baits because I don't want one that's really stiff because they got little hooks too, most of them. Yep. But I don't want, if you get one that's too soft, like a good flat bait rod is almost like not a good jerk bait rod because it's too soft.
Yeah.
And I wish somebody made one that over half of the butt was pretty stout, like a 6'10" or 6'8" with a short handle when you got all them closed, but had a lot of tip on the end. So it would flex and give when they're by the boat. There's not a lot of really good rods out there like that. I don't know if you know of some, but there's very few. I've used a lot. There's very few good flat bait rods on the market anymore.
Yeah, it's becoming tougher and tougher to find. And yeah, everybody wants to throw a crankbait on 12, 14-pound test. But man, in that wintertime situation with that 10-pound test, I think 10-pound is right at the level that I like to throw. And you know, I feel like I can still fight a fish really well with 10-pound, but you know, it doesn't feel very, very heavy, and you know, those fish are a little bit line shy or whatever. That 10-pound also helps you get a little bit of depth too. So
yeah, it gives another foot or so, and then like like I sell a tremendous amount of baits like on Del Hollow and Laurel and Cumberland in the wintertime. The Smith Mountain guys throwing like skinny peas, and I've got another bait called a Phil's Secret, which is a flat bait with a deep lip, and it'll go about 9 feet on a long throw. And I know in the winter I sell a tremendous amount of those baits. So I know the flat baits are a really big deal in the mountain lakes. And then like I don't have one here. I don't know if you got one close. Well, this is it. This is the color in a this is just a cheap knockoff plastic bait I got to play around and paint colors with. But Nasty, for some reason, throughout the winter sells more than probably almost every other color combined in my line of flat baits. And they throw them at Del Hollow where they can see 15 foot deep in the winter, and they throw them other places where maybe you can't see 3 foot or 2 foot in the winter. And you tell me why that is. Why is red, and I never saw crawfish that color, but why are those reds and bright orange? Why are they so good in the wintertime?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yep. And you do all your painting in house, right? You're
Yeah.
the painter.
I'm the painter, and then I've got guys that help me do everything else. And I've got less guys working now because business is down, because of the economy and the forward-facing sonar. But that'll all turn around and come back too, I think.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So moving into spring, kind of what are your favorite baits, balsa baits to throw in the spring when water temperatures are coming up? It's getting that time of year where fish are starting to move shallow.
I didn't have a lot of the baits here. I wasn't sure where we were going to go with this tonight, but one of my favorite spring baits is a floating jerk bait. And this is our slash P, which is similar to the original Bagley's. I just had a brain fart. What was it called? Bangalore. Yeah. It's just a little fatter. I built it with a spinner on the back and without, but once the water gets up to 60 degrees, I would never go to the lake without a floating jerk bait. And I don't care where I was fishing. It casts good. This one has enough weight. I put 3 short number 4s on it. So I can throw this even on 15-pound line if you're fishing around flooded bushes. So I throw a floating jerk bait a lot. Of course, in the spring, I think that once the water gets up there, like a prop bait is unbelievable around the spawn, this is in our old school line. It's more the long deviled horse style prop baits. We make several models. And then I don't have one here handy like a dummy. Of course, our squeaky peas are the biggest seller in the spring. The bluegill shaped tradition, prop baits.
Yep. Those guys up north, for some reason, just have not adopted that prop bait. And
no, not at all.
The prop bait, it's one of my first go-to things when that water temperature is hanging around in those 60-degree mark, especially if it's sunny out. If it's a bright sunny day, you're on a warming trend. I'm drooling to get out there with that bait because it's so subtle and you just kind of pull it. And I don't know about you, but I'll throw it on. I typically throw it on 12-pound mono. Is about what I throw it on.
Yeah, and you're right. In the South, Louisiana, Mississippi, Florida, around to the Carolinas along the coast, we sell the crap out of prop baits all summer. As soon as the water gets warm enough for guys, and they throw them until it gets cold in the fall. But up north, they don't. And you're familiar with the staffer I got, Ethan Rose. He's a high school fisher, does an outstanding job. A good fisherman, makes great videos for us, a lot of pictures. And he just went and fished that high school tournament at Saginaw Bay up there on Lake Huron. And he took a bait like this, only it was black with white ribs, and threw a prop bait up there, and they wrecked them on it. They got a lot of good pictures, and I think had they not had some boat issues, that they've had a shot to win, I think, that event. And he was telling me how good they were biting, and it's because those fish up there probably never see a prop bait.
Yeah.
It's like one of the big mysteries why it's so popular when you get below the Ohio River, but above it's not, because a fish is a fish.
Yeah. Yeah. And me personally, I really, really like the old school line prop baits. I really like the thin spin.
Right.
Is probably my favorite. And I'll pull it up here real quick.
Yeah, I don't know how many hundreds, thousands the thin spins we sell a year, and the overwhelming bulk of those go to Florida.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, they cast good, And I worked with one of the Florida pros with that bait. He's been to my house and stuff. We're friends. I'm probably not going to say who he is because of other sponsors that he has. But we got it. He wanted something like the original Devil's Horse, only he wanted it to roll more when you throw it, and a better finish, because ever since they sold out, the finish is so thin, and you can see all the wood grain on the Devil's Horses, and they're great fish catchers, but the quality, and I mean, I guess somebody's going to hate me for that, but it's just a fact. I've got a lot of original Devil's Horses here, and I've got new ones and old ones, and there's a marked difference in the quality. So this Elite Series pro, he's a Bass Pro Tour pro now. He's like, we need to make one that's got that pretty finish on it, and it's more durable, and I want it to roll more when you twitch it. So we just played around with the hook placement and props and stuff till we got it how it is. And I know like Mark Detweiler owned Big Toho Marine for years, and if they're no longer there, they sold it and they turned Big Toho Marine into a restaurant or something. The whole tackle store is gone. But Mark Detweiler would sell 300, 400, 500 of those thin spins a year right there on Toho. I mean, they sold it. They're insanely popular down there.
So what are those thin spins made out of? What is that?
The thin spins and this is a twin spin, has two hooks. It's a little fatter version of a thin spin. Yep. They're made out of a wood called Jelutong that comes from Malaysia. And what that does is, I didn't want to use basswood because basswood's bad about fuzzing up and it cracks more. Mm-hmm. So what it does is still buoyant. It's not as buoyant as balsa, but you can't put, and somebody's going to say, oh, I do it all the time. You know where this is going to go. You can't put a screw eye in a balsa bait without trying to epoxy it all in there or putting a plug in and then screwing it in. And it's not cost effective to drill a big hole in the end of each one and put a hardwood plug in there, and you lose some of the buoyancy then. So we built it out of the Jelutong wood. It's still really buoyant. It's pretty easy to work with. And then that allows us to use screw eyes for the hardware, which helps keep the price of the bait down a lot. So yeah. I think, I don't know, you probably buy more than I do. What is this, like maybe like a $10 prop bait handmade here in America?
Yeah. I
something
think,
like that.
Yeah, it's $11.
I own the place. I don't even know what they cost retail because they're on the side. I don't know what I sell so many wholesales. So
yeah, they're $11.95, and let me tell you, the colors that you offer, the finish on the baits, the good hardware. I never change out the hardware when I get a bait from you because you use really good products. You use really good split rings. I mean, yeah. It's a really high quality bait for that price.
Well, what I do is, I'm sorry. Go ahead, and then I'll tell you what I was going to say.
No,
I thought you were done.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. I have some of them now. This is something you don't have to fill your tackle box with. You can get 4 or 5 of these thin spins, and they're going to last you a long time. They're a long-lasting bait. So they're really high quality, really well put together. And I really, really, really like the thin spins. So you guys up north, don't sleep on the thin spin.
Yeah, it's what I do is like I could buy components from China cheaper. I don't want to deal with the language barrier and wait for them to get shipped here. So like my split rings are made in America. My lips are all made in America. Yep. They're made in Chicago or right here in Richmond, Indiana now. I used to have all of my lips built in Georgia, but they no longer do it. Obviously the wood comes from Ecuador and Malaysia, but like my hooks, I use VMC hooks. I didn't want to use Chinese made hooks, so they're made in France. And like all of my paints and clear coats components are all American made. I think the only thing that's not made in America is the hooks, and they're made in France. Everything else, everything I buy is American made, and maybe like the 3D eyes on the glide baits, I imagine they're made in Vietnam. But I try to do everything. My packaging's from here. I try to do everything, even though it costs more, American made, because I love having that. I'm such a big patriot, and I love this country, and I love having that flag on the packaging. I'm really proud of that, to be honest.
Yeah, that's great. It really sticks out when you get one of these baits. That one thing you put a lot of time and effort into it, but then also that American flag really sticks out on that package.
Yeah. Back, I just had a thought. You was talking about why balsa. We were talking about how good it comes through cover. I had a guy called me and he bought 8 square bill twos because he fishes in South Louisiana. So I shipped them to him today, and he called me and he's like, I want a balsa square bill that comes through those knees good. He's like, I threw the old Bagleys. He said he had a bunch of original of the B2 Bagleys, and he finally had broke his last one. And he was looking for a replacement and said he got his hands on one of mine. But he was telling me that where they fish down there in South Louisiana, it's about all cypress or grass fishing. And he's like, I can't wind any of those plastic square bills through the cypress knees. And he's like, I can throw that bait you make and wind it right through there. So, and this guy's a great guy, great customer. I always love talking to him. But and they buy 2 colors, and I probably better not say here, he might get mad at me. But apparently he does pretty good fishing for money. But he buys 2 colors from me, and always the same bait. And I shipped him some today, priority mail, because he's like, I gotta have them by Saturday because I got a tourney this weekend. And if he sees this, he'll know who I'm talking about. Yeah. I talked to him for a little bit today. He's a super nice guy.
Well, that's another thing that I really like about your setup too, Phil, is you have PH Custom. You guys have your website, but you put your personal number on every one of those packages.
Yeah.
It when you call PH Custom Lures, you're not talking to anybody except for you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Sometimes if I'm busy, Josh will answer, but hell, Josh has worked for me for maybe 13 or 14 years. I mean, my girls were young. I mean, time flies, and Josh, except for he can't paint, but he pretty much does everything else here. Even when we got other people working in here, he pretty much runs the show. I don't. I'm busy painting and taking orders, and Josh kind of runs everything, but if you talk to him, he's real knowledgeable, about anything you need or anything like that. He's real responsible, and I'm lucky to have him because he's an integral part of PH Custom Lures. It'd kill me if he ever left. He's like family.
Yeah. He also helps get orders out the door and
oh yeah, he's honestly got too much on his plate. Yeah. But he's I guess he seems to like it. He wants to stay busy, so
yeah, that's good.
And that's another thing too. If you get a bait from me, I mean, I can't possibly see every bait that goes out the door, and it's possible. Like we had a batch of lips one time that had oil in the lips, so we epoxied them all in, and even though we wiped them off, it didn't get it off. And that little thin microscopic film, some of the lips come out, and guys were calling, and I replace them. I make all that right. Like, I mean, I love it when guys call me and say, hey man, your baits rock. I want more, or I just want to tell you I love them. And then, and if you have an issue with a bait, just call me on the phone. We'll work it out. I'll take care of you. I've never cheated anybody. I know the only real complaint that I ever get, honestly, actually the only complaint is guys will be like, oh man, it takes too long to get them. But it's because we're a small operation. We make thousands of baits a year by hand, and I'm always 4 weeks to 2 months at least behind. And I think maybe that's good and bad. I'm lucky it's like that, but it's stressful to be behind,
Yeah. Yep. Absolutely. But getting into, so we've gone through some early spring stuff. Spring is starting to move along. We're kind of in the dog days of summer. We're getting there right now. And so kind of what baits are you targeting for this time of year?
Probably square bills, like if you're fishing shallow, and then and like this is that same hunting pea again. I just happen to have laying here, like the hunting pea, little hunter, tiny hunter, depending on where you're at. I also throw the sub pea a lot in the summer, and then you're getting into the ploppers and the dog walkers. And this is my best selling dog walker. This one doesn't have hooks. This is balsa. It throws like a missile. All the weight is in the rear. There's just a little weight in the front end, so the bait rides upright. Otherwise, they want to have a tendency to lay on their side. But a kid could walk the dog with this. It's no rattles in it. I have guys every once in a while ask for rattles, but it has no rattles. It's about, what is it, like 4.5 inches. It's a little smaller than the original spook. And then we built them all the way up. And this one doesn't have hardware on it yet. But this is a Jelly-tongue dog walker, and this is like a 6-inch bait. It's our pencil popper, or our pencil pea. It's like a pencil popper, only it doesn't have the cupped-in mouth to throw. So this bait is really silent. This one is, we call Carolina foil. It's just a solid silver foil with red eyes and a black spot. And for the guys in the know, This is a really popular color, just chrome or silver full, like all through the Carolinas on the herring lakes. So this has a real wide walk kind of in place, but you can walk it forward. Sometimes I'll walk it a little and then wind it real quick and then stop and walk it. And on any of the herring lakes, this is a really good bait. And you can almost throw the line off the reel with this one because it's built out of jelly tongue. Has 3 hooks, has 3 number 2s on the belly, so you get a good solid hookup. Yeah. And it's like a $20 bait for a handmade balsa or a handmade wooden bait.
And there's a lot of wood there. Like it's a
lot of wood there. Yeah. It's long. Yeah. Not such a big seller in Indiana, but I don't know why. Because when I fish offshore, I live on Brookville and I fish offshore most of the summer, and I couldn't imagine going down there and not having one of these or some kind of dog walker tied on even offshore because they come up and feed on those shad. You know. Yeah. I want to be an IBF, and am I getting too windy? I know I'm hard to interview. I love talking about it so much. I won an IBF at Brookville last year, a federation, and I caught them all over 45 feet of water on a dog walker, and I was not throwing mine. I'm not going to lie. I was throwing the one knocker sexy dog, a chrome one, but I caught like 3 limits, and they weren't on a hump or ridge. They were off of a hump, but they were just suspended out there, and they were pushing bait to the surface. And I think like within an hour of when I started, I had it won. I don't know how many I caught. My co-angler finished 4th, throwing one. I give him one of those sexy dogs. And I think the key there is those fish I could see them kind of running under my boat, looked like spaghetti on the screen. And they were staying about 20 feet deep, and they would push the shad once in a while. But that one knocker on that sexy dog, I think was calling them up, because I actually tried to throw like an old fashioned spook, and I threw some of mine and I couldn't get bit on it. It was all about that big loud knocker, walking up there, calling them up. So.
Yeah. Something I appreciate about your walkers is being in a kayak. There are times where we can't stand up sometimes. And,
right.
And, one great thing about your dog walker is it is so easy to walk.
Right.
I can actually do it sitting down in my seat, and I can move that bait really, really easy. And then, the hooks on it are phenomenal. You put some good size hooks on there, so even if you get swiped at most time, you still hook the fish.
Right. I'm working on coming out with one like this. I want one that's about 5.5 inches, and so I can get 3 hooks on it. I'm working, and I don't even know if it'll happen this summer. But because this bait, I think, is 6 inches, isn't it? You probably got some of these.
Yep.
Hell, I designed this years ago, and I haven't measured one. I can't remember how long all that stuff is. I mess with so many models. But it's definitely dog walkers, and we make a popper. We've got a walking popper, which walks really good. It's a 3-inch popper. It's built out of balsa. Those really good too. And then the square bills. That's probably the bulk of my crankbait sales in the summer is square bills, and we make. Like I had so many guys saying, why doesn't nobody make a 2.0 and a 1.5 out of balsa? So I've got a 2.5 and a 1.5 and a 2.0 balsa that look just like a plastic one. And they go a little deeper than most of the balsa square bills. I think the 2.0 will go 6 foot pretty easy. They cast real good. They probably don't come through cover quite as good as like a hunting pea or a little hunter. And then I've got a P1, which is similar to Ed Chambers' WEC1. Ed's been gone now for 3 years, 4 years, maybe, time flies. So I've got it. It has a real hard wobble, comes through cover good. Every bait I build is like no two are alike. Each model is different and has its place, whether it's a different depth or a harder vibration or more or less buoyant.
Yeah. One of my favorite ones, here in Indiana, getting a little bit finessey with it. The Tiny Hunter. What I like about that Tiny Hunter is man, it still has a lot of action to it. It still acts like a balsa bait, a balsa crankbait, but it's a little bit more compact, smaller size.
And it casts good, doesn't it?
It does. For this size of bait, it casts really well.
Right.
So square bill wise, what are kind of some of the hot seller colors?
Well, to be honest, I bet you got one of these laying there, because I have one in the skinny pea. This is just like a pearl white with a black back, has a little blue glimmer on the nose. I don't know if it even shows up, and chartreuse and orange on the throat. This and plain old fashioned chartreuse and black with an orange belly.
tough to
are the
beat.
two best sellers by far. And I have sold so many square bills to Elite Series guys. And like, I've had Elite Series guys call me and be like, I want a dozen chartreuse and black and a dozen of something white. So, or pearl. So I think we get caught up on it more than
Yeah,
they do. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And
absolutely.
then I've got a color called the foiled colors obviously are big sellers. And I've got a color called Money, which is silver foil. And I don't have one laying here. I don't see. It's a silver foil and it has like a chartreuse belly with an orange throat and has a funky, transparent metallic looking back. And that's probably my third best seller all summer.
Yeah, that money's a great color for any of them. So that brings up a really good point. With Balsa Baits and something that you can't really, I really haven't seen anybody being able to replicate it well with a plastic bait is that foil.
No, you can't. Not really. I mean,
Yeah. So kind of explain what the foil is and kind of what it looks like and how you apply it and then kind of how you finish it.
yeah. I don't want to talk too much about how I put it on because I get asked, but you can see this is a silver and there's not much light like the sun's going down now,
Yep.
but they're not quite as, and hell, you know as much about this as I do. I think the silver foiled baits and the gold foil and stuff, and then we do like a chartreuse foil, red foil, all orange foil, all those different colors, but they're not as brilliant as chrome. I think because they're textured like a little scale pattern, it kind of, I think it's kind of like the difference in like a hammered spinnerbait blade and one that's not hammered, and you can tell the difference when you wind them through the water.
Yep.
You know, all the plastic ones are just chrome plated, and then the chrome plating never stays on there, no matter what anybody. I mean, I throw the chrome sexy dog is one knocker is one of my favorite dog walkers, and you'll go through one a day.
Yeah.
So because I'm a painter, I just I blast the rest of it off and I just clear coat them over the plain bone and I keep fishing with them. But the silver foil on these baits here, you just clear over the silver foil. This has 3 coats of clear over the silver foil, and then you paint it, and then it's got 2 more coats of clear over that. So they're pretty durable. And I think the reason I've tried to chrome plate, because there's a lot of chrome plating kits you can buy, but I've tried to chrome plate the wood baits. And when I was building the Wake Up, you know, I have the rights to the Wake Up that actually a guy named Kelly Stooksbury did it years ago. And then Buckeye Lures sold it under their deal, and I built it for them for a while. And when they wanted out of the balsa part, and I don't know what Buckeye really does anymore. I know Roy is the dad of the guy that owns it, and you couldn't be a nicer guy to deal with than Roy. And they were having someone chrome plate at one time the Wake Ups, but it's so expensive to chrome plate a wooden bait. And then the issue that you have, there's a lot of really good chrome plating kits on the market that like garage builders and stuff can use. But the issue is these clear coats are all solvent based. They're all the ones that I use. So no matter which, I've tried 8 or 10 of them, no matter what one you use, it takes the finish, it dulls the chrome. So I think that what the issue is, maybe like, I don't think like the sexy dogs and a lot of the chrome ones, I don't think they have a clear on them because I don't think they can put one unless it was a water base. And I don't understand putting a water based clear coat on a bait you're going to throw in the water. So this just gives you a different look. You know, this is still shiny, flashes in the sun, but it kind of diffuses the light. And there's a lot of days I think they bite the silver foil much better than a chrome blade. Maybe chrome's too bright sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. It's very subtle. Man, when fish are really keying in on shad, I mean, it foils like a must. I mean, it's great. So moving kind of into later summer. I mean, you mentioned a bait that we hadn't talked about, the Wake Up. So the Wake Ups, you know, it's a really unique bait in that you know, it's a long pencil wake bait is basically what it is.
Has a little bend in the back.
Yep.
And it's insanely popular. I mean, like, this has been our best wake bait year ever. I don't know how many 100 Wake Ups we've sold this, and we're still getting orders for Wake Ups. And by now it stops. But I think what's going on is guys have figured out, a lot of guys on the mountain lakes are using the Wake Ups at night. and they're
Okay.
paralleling the banks with those wake baits at night.
Yeah.
I know a lot of guys like in Del Hollow and Cumberland, Laurel. That's what they're doing with them. And I've got a guy who sends me pictures, and I don't post them because he doesn't really want his buddies to know. But he sent me some pictures of giant. He lives in Virginia. I don't know. I don't even know what lakes he fishes, but man, this guy catches some toads on wake baits at night. And he's like, hey, no one here even hardly does it. You know, he doesn't want everybody to know. And he might be mad at me now. I don't know how many guys in Virginia are going to watch this.
It's a pretty unique little bait for sure. And it you know, it casts well. It does all the things. It's a really, really underrated bait, I think, here in the Midwest for sure. It's a great search bait. Like if you're
exactly, yeah.
You know, if you're just going down a bank and looking for something like that, that wake up is tough to beat. So moving out of the summer and moving back kind of into the fall now, kind of what baits are you thinking in the fall time?
I don't think like until the water gets cold that it's really much different. I mean, fall is when I sell the most of my dog walkers in the fall. I sell a buttload of flat or square bills in the fall. And then as it gets, when the water gets down like into the 50s, then it goes back into the skinny pea, you know, the flat baits. And then magically, like you can't make enough red crankbaits in the spring until about April. Red dominates all the flat bait sales. And then all summer, you can't give one away unless somebody's buying them to stock up for fall because we're always behind. And then starting about the end of November, bam, red takes off again and they buy reds all winter long. And some guys don't even care what color it is as long as it's red.
Yeah. It's interesting for me. Like if somebody were to say I could only have, 3 balsa baits, I mean, it's going to be the little guy. I think I don't know how many little guys I've bought off you, but it's been a ton. That's probably the most underrated little bait there is. It catches them.
It catches big ones too, doesn't it? Even though it's little.
All the time. The time. And for as little a bait as it is, it actually throws really, really well too.
Right.
Around cover, around some brush piles and stuff. You gotta be a little bit careful. It still comes through it pretty good. You just gotta be a little aware of it. The Tiny Hunter is definitely on my list, and then the Dollar Bill. Those are my 3. What are your 3 baits that if you could only have 3 balsa baits, what 3 baits are you?
Mine would be a skinny pea, a hunting pea. I'd be hard pressed to pick between a hunting pea and a little hunter, but I think I would pick a hunting pea. And then, man, I don't know. To be honest, I probably would pick the plopping pea. We haven't talked about them yet.
Yeah.
The plopping pea or a prop bait. And I probably would pick a squeaky pea. Yeah. And, after Wesley Strader won all that MLF stuff at Lake Ouachita, we were instantly like buried when they televised it, even though they didn't let him say who made it and all that. I mean, like buried. And I bet, this is no joke, I bet I sold 100 to other MLF competitors within the first 3 days after he won. Yeah. Guys were calling me and buying 8 or 10. And the thing with this one, and this is not the only plopper I throw. I really like a Chapo. I actually kind of like it better than a Whopper plopper. Makes a little more noise, but this has a metal blade, and this is a balsa bait, and it's still got a rivet on the back, and we crimp that. So as you throw that, you've heard it, it starts to squeak, and you get this silver flash behind the bait, which is I think they probably see so many Whopper ploppers and Chapos that this still makes that same plopping sound and throws the water, but it's just a different profile, and you got a little silver flash on it. And I'm convinced that there's days when this will definitely outfish the plastic models like 100%.
Yeah, and with that blade, I'll kind of tell a little bit of a secret here, but with that blade, you can actually adjust the pitch of that blade. You have to be careful.
Yeah, just like so you don't ruin the bait. Yeah,
you don't want to break it. You want to get good hands on the base of the bait and everything, but you can bend that little blade, and you can get different sounds out of it. And
what I do with the ones I throw is bend them on the very end there, all the way across. I make that cup a little more, just a little bit with a pair of needle nose.
Yep.
You didn't want me to tell that, did you?
I didn't know that one.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, one of the Elite Series guys that was in my shop gave me that tip. He's like, dude, I bend mine. He's like, you take a pair of naturally, I don't even have a pair of needle nose. They're all over at the other bench. But you just go in about 1/8 of an inch all the way across that square end that I don't know if you could even see it, the square end.
Yeah.
And you just put a little bit of cup, just a little more cup on that, and it throws a little more water, works a little better.
Wow.
And I've tried twisting them and stuff, but you got to really be careful doing that or you could screw them up. So
have you had or have you thrown this bait? So I almost walk it sometimes versus just straight reeling it. And it seems like sometimes you'll get some bites walking it.
Yeah, I've never done that part, but I wind it and stop it a lot, and I wind it and stop it. And I know 2 guys that went to the All-American, qualified at Kentucky Lake. Josh, that works for me, Josh Ford, and Bobby Reveley, a guy here in town. Both, we were all staying together down at the regional at Kentucky Lake. This has been maybe 5 years ago, something like that. And they both made the All-American. Whatever year that they went to Mississippi, whatever that lake in Mississippi, the last time the All-American was down there, and all they did, both of them, was they threw a bone white plopping pea behind their boater out on those bars on Kentucky Lake in the fall. It was October. That's all both of them did. Threw it on 30-pound braid, and they both qualified for the All-American doing that on that plopper.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. It's a big accomplishment to go to the All-American. It is really, really hard because you have to have that one tourney a year has to be perfect.
Yep. That's I know that's been a heartbreaker for a lot of people not qualifying and losing fish and all that stuff. So
somebody on the spot that you pull up on, and you can't fish. And I'm not one of those guys that'll go in and hole jump and cut in front of each because some of these new guys fishing, and even some of the. It's so cutthroat out there, the tourneys. Guys will just jump right in front of you, 30 yards in front of you, and fish down the bank. Like it's like a lot of times I feel like saying, "Who raised you? Didn't they teach you anything?" But it's just the nature of it.
My dad would not been pleased if I would have ever done that to anybody.
Right.
So
I
totally understand that and totally get that.
Yeah.
So we're approaching an hour, actually just over an hour now into the podcast here. So kind of wind down a little bit. What new? Do you have anything new coming out, or anything that you could talk about?
I've been playing in the glide bait game for I don't know 3 or 4 years, and I'm going to tell you it's the most frustrating thing. I actually have a wooden glide bait. I don't have one laying handy. They sell it on Tackle Warehouse, the PH Glide and the Mini Glide, and I sell a lot of those, but they are such a pain in my butt to make. Weighting them and getting them and trying to hide the belly weight holes and all of that, and then wood swells and contracts, and we've had a terrible time finding, clear coat that wouldn't crack. I think I kind of onto something now. The last 100 or so we built are much better, but you've thrown them. Every one of them glide great. It seems like the wooden ones glide a little wider than the plastic ones, but I've got a plastic one here, and I'm really proud of this because I've learned I don't have anybody to ask. I think we've made every mistake you could make trying to build these resin baits and throwing them in the trash and playing with micro balloons and weighting them. So what I do is we pour each one of them, come back and try to fill any little places on them with putty because you get that, and then we tune everyone in the tank. And one thing that I really wanted if I did it is, and I'm not going to say anybody's names because everybody's trying to make a living, but you're a big glide bait guy, much bigger than I am into it, and you collect them. There's a lot of $200 glide baits out there that you can buy, and one will sink fast and one will sink slow. Mm-hmm. And I didn't want that. If I'm going to get in the glide bait thing, mine are a little cheaper than that. They're so expensive because of the time that goes in, but I want mine to all be consistent. So I try to get mine so that in 60-degree water, it's about 2 or 3 seconds a foot. And then naturally, if a guy throws them in 45-degree water, they're barely going to sink. If you're throwing them in 80-degree water, they're going to sink faster. So I try to make them slower. We got some real pretty colors. You've got a paintbrush tail in them, big 3D eyes. And like this is more your topic than mine, but I wanted to make them slow sink, and that way a guy can just put bigger hooks on them. You can put suspend dots. If you make them heavy to start, you can't lighten them up, but you can always make them heavier. And I've noticed, and I actually call Matt here a lot and ask him questions because he's such a wealth of knowledge about the glide baits. it seems like the slower they sink, the wider they glide. Have you noticed that? And I know you could play with the hinge and change a little bit of that, the distance and all that, but
Yeah,
it's something that I've noticed.
yeah. In the way I fish glide baits, in the rivers here, and even in lakes, I want to be able to, with the price of those glide baits, I want to have a visual on that glide bait at all time, and that's what's really nice about your baits is that they are on that slower side of a sink rate, but I mean you are very much a perfectionist in anything that you do. And your glide baits, I mean, everything you do is a work of art, but man, those glide baits are really, really something. Because
I appreciate that.
There are others out there that would not put the time in to fill what you fill, and how much sanding you do, and to get the baits right. And yeah, the wood baits, they glide really, really well. You have two models in that. You have a larger, and then you have a junior or a smaller.
Yeah, I'm working on a smaller shad shaped one now. This is our shad glider here, and it glides phenomenal. It walks good, or you guys call it chopping, and the swim bait guy. It chops good. They sink level. This one's going to Florida to Lee Sisson, actually. He wanted something. I've never painted a golden shiner before, but I looked at so many pictures, and if you saw it in person, as you flip it in the light, it's got a gold flash to it. Yeah. But that's what all the pictures that he sent me and the ones I looked at, that's what it looked like. And then here's one without a tail. This is actually Bill Lowen's bait, but this is just the raw resin. And I don't know if I should even say this or not.
Uh-oh.
I don't know. The resin, there is something to the raw resin versus painting it. Even if you paint it this same color and it matches, but I've been told that there's UV in the resin that I use, and I don't know how people feel or don't feel about the whole UV thing.
Yeah.
But I know that all the ones that I make for myself, and I don't know, do you have one that's, I don't paint them.
I don't.
I just pop them right out of the mold. I light sand them. I put a little black on them, and actually I use lacquer so it bites into there, so it stays really, really good.
Yep.
The problem with these, if anybody wants some unpainted, because I'm going to tell you, I don't know what there is about it, but I've got so addicted to throwing them, especially this year. I've always got one tied on. It just seems to me like that there is definitely something about the raw resin color of the brand that I use anyhow. Mm-hmm. The issue with the raw resin is if you leave it out in the sun a lot, it's going to turn more of a yellow color after a few days. And so it'll be kind of like white on one side and more of a milky yellow looking color on the other side. I don't know how you can combat that. So if anybody calls me and they want a bare resin one, you just have to remember, if you're not throwing it, to keep it kind of out of the sunlight.
Yeah.
But I probably shouldn't even have told that now, because I'll sell a bunch of them in the bare resin and somebody will call me and say it turned yellow. But no. You can still get a lot of time. And I thought you and I had talked about that before, that maybe when we've talked, when you've called and got them, that there was something to that bare resin maybe. And this is Lowen's bait, and getting ready to take it up north, and I got to put a tail in it. It has no clear, no paint on it. The only paint on it is the black, the kill spotting around the eye. Wow. I mean, I'm sure if you ask him, he's going to say there's something to it.
Yeah.
To that bare resin.
I remember you calling me one day when you got off the water, and you're like, I can't get them to bite this other color, but man, this basically naked one that I just put some clear on, it's killing it. So yeah, I call the color raw deal, but I've only been selling it to guys that I know who won't call me and raise hell a month later when it turns kind of yellow. But I've got one that's really yellow. It's in my boat. I wish I had it. It's kind of yellow looking on one side and white on the other. I still get bites on it. I mean, I still throw it. I honestly think maybe that I was told right, that maybe there is some kind of UV in the resin, and I don't know. I don't use Alumilite resin, not any particular reason. I just use a different brand. I don't know if theirs has that, but and then you've got a lot of the other ones like the clutches and the KGBs and stuff. Are any of those just the raw resin, or are they all painted? Yeah, there's some that are pure resin.
Some of those are just resin, not painted.
Yep.
Do they turn yellow after they're out in the sun a while?
A little bit. A bone color will turn into like it'll have just a little bit of like a just like a tent, like a almost like a little yellow streak through it.
I got one here. If I can, I got one here. I could show you. Like, here's the difference. This is one that I laid in the window here in the shop. So can you see a difference?
Yeah. Yeah.
This was one that laid in the sun. I don't know if it even matters.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, I know for mine, I ain't painting them because maybe it's all in my head, but I'm convinced that there's something to that raw color. And I'm just scared to offer it or put it like out there on a website because I'm afraid there'll be some guys will get upset because it turns yellow. I mean,
right.
I don't know.
So we kind of covered. We kind of went all through the gamut of balsa baits, wood baits, top waters, crankbaits, everything kind of in between. Kind of, looking. Guys looking for these baits, where can they get the baits? I know you have your website, PH Custom Lures.
Right.
How else can they get?
Well, they can get it. Tackle Warehouse has a huge selection. Land Big Fish, Fisherman Central. Probably one of my biggest wake bait sellers is Hammond's Fishing down at Lake Lanier, and I actually think they're sold out right now. I'm actually getting ready to send them. I make a little bait called a front runner. It's a little wooden bait, kind of like Norman's made that bait. What they call it? That you tie in your line when fish are schooling. I make a wooden model. The Tactical Bassin guys, man, they did an awesome review on it. Said it was the best one on the market, and it's been a Tackle Warehouse exclusive. So I'm getting ready to send 90 of those down to Hammond's Fishing on Lake Lanier. So within a week or two, he'll have them down there for the guys that live in that area because I know that's a big deal down in that area there. Just lots of local stores like Wheatus Marine right down here on the Ohio River by Cincinnati. Wilder, Kentucky, they have one of the biggest selection of my stuff. You can call them. They don't sell them on the website, but all you got to do is call and ask for Marty or Steve, and they'll be happy to tell you what they've got and ship them to you. And
they have
I know I'm leaving stores out like 32 Marine, Illinois has a huge selection. I've got so many stores, I probably should shut up because I don't want to make anybody mad because I left them out, Yeah. Crane's Outdoor Sports has a huge selection here in Liberty, by the lake over here. They sell a lot of baits.
Yeah, and if anybody needs any recommendations, I mean, they can give you a call anytime, right?
Sure. Yeah. And what I was thinking too is we did this podcast and a lot of people will probably watch the whole thing. Anybody that wants to call me in the next week or so and order baits, I'll knock a good little bit of money off the price of the baits. So call me personally. Don't get on the site and buy them. And then that way I can also tell you what I got in stock or what I don't have in stock if guys that haven't bought them and don't want to wait on them, if you want to try them. And I'd love to talk to everybody. I'll give them a discount. So
awesome. What's that phone number, Phil?
It's 765-541-0726.
There you go. There you have it.
Yeah.
And I will warn you, I've known you for years. You've been a good buddy of mine for years. Do not text them. If you want to order baits, give him a call. Yeah. Call him up and talk to Phil on the phone.
Yeah. And if you text me and tell me, I'll get somebody saying, I want hunting peas. And I'm like, I don't know who this is. If you do text me, put in the text what's your name and your phone number and that you want to talk to me about baits. And it might be a day or two, but I'll give you a call back. But I do have a big inventory in stock all the time. I probably have over $50,000 worth of baits in stock. I mean, I can't possibly have every model and color because hell, we probably got 600 or 700 SKUs or more with all the different colors and models. But I'd love to talk to guys. You know what I mean? Just give me a call and I'll take care of you. I got a lot of regular customers that's what they always do because they know they get a little discount when they do that. Yeah. And another thing, I've started redoing glide baits. If you've got glide baits, it doesn't matter what brand that you've messed them up or they've, nobody's finished stays on forever. Just give me a call. My prices are really good. We'll strip them off. I'll refinish them. Same way with plastic baits. I did this for years and years and I haven't done it. And I'm going to start doing it because I got a little more time now. That's how I got my start. Anybody that's got, I don't care if they're KVD square bills or whatever, custom painted colors and stuff, just give me a call on those, send them to me, and I'll do my best to get them knocked out, get them repainted, and get them back to you guys. And if I can at all, I don't just paint over paint unless I can't get the finish off. I've got a blast cabinet here, and I use a real fine glass beads so it doesn't damage the baits, so we tape off the lip and try to get the old paint off so you're not adding all that extra weight. Some baits that doesn't matter, some it does. Like you can't repaint a lot of the suspended jerk baits. You can't just paint over their finish and clear them because it'll make them sink.
Yeah. Yep. With that, do you have any final words here? Anybody you want to thank? Anything you want to kind of talk about, plug, anything like that before we hop off here?
Well, just all my fishing sponsors, Weedus Marine, they take great care of me. If I was going to buy a Phoenix, Skeeter, Icon, anything like that, Express, I would give those guys a shout. Call down there, ask for Richie Adams, somebody like that. Those guys are great. I mean, I've had a lot of companies been really good to me. Dale Black's a friend of mine at Gamma Line. I use all Gamma Line. I know it's expensive, but I feel like it's probably the best fluorocarbon on the market. Power Rods, I've been with them forever. Keith takes good care of me with rods. And then just all my buddies and my friends. I've had so many buddies, like you helped me at the sports show. Denny Johnson helps me, and Justin Rutledge and Everett Ailes and Mario Mills, our staff manager. Mario does a great job. And I'm actually looking for pro staffers right now. We're always looking to add quality staffers. The discounts that you get are pretty big. And if you get me stores or you do a really good job, I'll give you free baits. And to do that, it's PH Custom Lure Pro Staff 1. And put the letter 1. Don't spell out O-N-A. So it's PH Custom Lures Pro Staff 1 at gmail.com. Mario is the staff manager. Shoot Mario an email and we'll get you squared away there. I'm always looking for quality staffers. And it's just, I just feel like that I'm really lucky that I get to do what I like to do. I'm not making a lot of money. I'm not ever going to get rich doing this, but everything I do pretty much in life is about hunting or fishing. And I just think that I'm really lucky to get to do that.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great.
I don't have to go do a job I hate. I never hate coming in here. Even if I'm tired, I never hate coming in here. I love the guys that work for me. I like talking to the guys that call me. It's always a fun day.
Yep, I know there's been days where I've called you and you've been just sicker than hell and you're still there at work. Just enjoying it. So
yeah, and as I've gotten older, if I'm sick, I stay home sometimes too. So,
yeah.
But I feel guilty. What I do, I feel guilty all day because like especially until June or July, we're like buried in orders. And if I stay home a day, I feel like that's 200 or 300 baits I could have painted. So
well, Phil, we'll have to get back together. Maybe do a podcast or two together, and kind of talk about some other things. Talk about some balsa baits. Talk about what's new. So. Appreciate you coming on the show. Appreciate you taking time out of your busy time here and giving us a little bit of time and walking us through balsa baits.
Hey, one quick thing is, this, but most people don't, hardly anybody. I've paired up with Bass Mafia, and they own Guggen and a bunch of places like that. But we did a flat bait and a square bill for Bass Mafia. It's in Bass Mafia packaging. It says made by Phil Hunt on the packaging. They've just started posting on Instagram and stuff. I'm real excited about that. They did a lot of baits, a lot of each color. They got some beautiful colors. So I'm really anxious to see how that goes. Having they're a powerhouse as far as marketing. So I'm really anxious to see how that goes. Hopefully guys will get on there and buy them. They're a phenomenal bait. They work really good. I actually fished with both of them a lot before we sent them the final prototypes. And hopefully those will all sell. We'll get reorders. And I know their goal is they would like to expand it into top waters and deep bait, all kinds. I mean, they got a lot of plans with the whole balsa thing. So, which excites me because I don't want to see the wood bait market die. The new guys, all they know is Japanese stuff and this JDM stuff. And I'm not knocking that. There's such a tradition of wood baits all throughout the world, even, tons of balsa baits made in Japan, but a lot of the younger crowd, the younger fishermen, they just never were exposed to the wood bait industry. So I'm hoping Bass Mafia can help keep all that alive.
And those are made and painted and everything in-house by you, Phil?
Oh, yeah, totally 100% American made. Yep.
That's awesome.
They go and, and they're doing everything American made because I got the boxes, I set them up with the people I buy my boxes for the packaging. My local printer here in town prints the cards, the packing cards that go in there. So, yeah, we've tried to do it 100%. They got BMC hooks on them. So, and that was important to them, as I know they're wanting to. I'm impressed that they're wanting to get more into American-made line of product instead of, because all those big companies, everything comes from China or, Costa Rica or somewhere like that. The Bagleys now are made in Serbia, and of course Rapalas are in Finland. Rapalas are great baits, but there's not very many companies anymore that actually build tackle in America unless they're like hand poured plastics or something.
Yep, exactly. And if you've been following Bass Mafia on Instagram, I haven't seen as much on their Facebook page, but I'm not on Facebook as much. They've really been pushing that bait. Really had some great pictures of the baits. So I'd encourage you to go out and look at those. So with that, Phil, go ahead.
Yeah, I think they'll go quick because they ordered a lot, but it's not a lot when you look at the following. I mean, they got 126,000 followers on Instagram. So I'm thinking that they're going to, I think, is it July 4th? Is that the actual date that you can order? Does that seem right? Or
it was the 4th or the 5th. I think it was
the
4th, actually. I think
so I think they'll go in a day or two. So, and the square bill, I mean, we're kind of past the flat bait season, but the square bill is, I mean, it's going to catch them good.
Yeah. And
there was a lot of pros had input into it. And
yeah, it looks like there's some great colors too, great old school type of colors that are going to be really, really, really good.
Yeah, they wanted the old fashioned traditional colors. So, and they've got I actually am jealous because they kind of told me to come up with they did a silver foil finished bait. Ooh. And after I did it, I'm like, oh, I screwed up. I should have been in my line. And I would never do that to them. You know what I mean? But they've got a silver foil, and I don't remember off the top of my head what it was called. It has like some chartreuse and blue on the back and a chartreuse and orange belly and throat. It's just beautiful to look at, and I know it's really going to catch them.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So get out there, get a hold of Phil. Phil said he's going to hook you up if you get a hold of him. Mention that you listen to it on the podcast. Bass Mafia, they've got that release coming out. You can give Phil a call. You can, Phil has a great interactive Facebook page as well. You can order off of his website, Tackle Warehouse, all those other places that he mentioned. So Phil, again, thank you for your time.
Yeah,
wrap it up.
It was fun.
It was real fun. So
yeah.
We need more time, as always. It seems like
I know. I do a lot of podcasts with people, and they always. And I apologize for being windy. I hope I didn't bore nobody, but we just scratched the surface talking about balsa baits and crankbaits and what you can do and can't do. And hey, and also, so I don't offend nobody, you was talking about Facebook. I've got a Phil Hunt page, and it's maxed out. You can only have 500 friends on a personal page. So don't send me a friend request on Phil Hunt. Send it to PH Custom Lures, because I think I have 14 or 15,000 on there, but that's unlimited.
Yep.
So I know every day I get friend requests on there for my Phil Hunt page from fishermen. There would be a guy holding a fish or in a boat, and I know they probably think I'm avoiding them, but I'm not very tech savvy. I don't even know how to get on there and tell the guy I can't accept your friend request because I'm maxed out. So anybody that sent me a friend request and I didn't accept it, it's not because I didn't want to. It's because Facebook won't let me. So make sure you do PH Custom Lures. And we have an Instagram page. Also have a YouTube page that, with Matt's help, I'm going to grow a little bit, do more bait videos, content videos, stuff like that.
Yeah, and we didn't even talk about your complete bait lineup, it's just crazy to me. We didn't even
just kind of touched on it, really.
Yeah, well, we didn't talk about your jigs. We didn't talk about your buzz baits, which are
baits. All hand-tied skirts. The buzz baits are all squeakified. I mean, it's one of the squeakiest buzzers on the market right out of the package. So
it's insane. So
all American made as well.
Yep. So again, thank you, Phil. We're going to kind of wrap it up here. We'll definitely have you back on, and we'll talk some more stuff. And it's been great. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and being open about kind of the inner workings of PH Custom Lures. And with that, I'm going to drop you out here, and thank you all for listening to another episode of Fishing for Noobs here on the Paddle and Fin Network. Again, PH Custom Lures, thank you, Phil. That was awesome. That was great. Looking forward to catching up in future. And remember to keep Paddle and Fin in mind during ICAST. We're going to be doing live podcasts from ICAST on the show floor, starting the first day of ICAST, going all the way to the last day. We're going to have some great interviews. We're going to be talking to some great people. So be looking forward to that. And us Dubro boys might have a few new things to show off. So make sure you stay tuned for that. With that, thank you again for listening. and we'll see you next time.